Hey everyone, welcome to my ultimate Next.js 13 series. In this series, we will cover everything about Next.js 13 by creating this beautiful blog using Material UI 5 and of course Next.js 13. This blog is the clone of gatesnotes.com, which is one of the most famous blogs in the world. So in this course, you will learn how to create a CRUD API using Next.js 13 and SQL, and also, of course, this beautiful responsive UI using Material UI, CSS, JavaScript, and much more tips and tricks for creating clean and reusable components. So after this course, you will be able to create any kind of Next.js 13 website with Material UI 5, CSS, and JavaScript. So let me give you an overview of this beautiful blog and all the functionalities of this blog. So first of all, we will design this navbar here, in which we got some buttons and categories. And also, if we scroll down, you can see we get this animated navbar, which will be available all the time. So you'll also learn how to create this top navbar for any website you want using Material UI 5. So the first button, which is login, it will open a model here for us, in which we will show our users this UI for registering to our blog. And also, of course, if they are already registered, they can just log in. Now in this series, I'm not going to cover the authentication, but I'll create one more series in Next.js Auth, in which we will create full authentication for our blog also. So now if you click outside of this model, it will just close itself. And now if I want to create a post, I'll just click on the create button here, and then we can create our course as we want. So let me paste some title and details here instead of typing. So I'll type this one in here. I'll say example. So it will be our example blog post, and then I'll paste some image URL. So I'll just copy one here. Now I paste it here, and then we got the excerpt. So let's paste this also. Now I got my excerpt, paste it here, and of course I need some description here. So the content is also here. So it is done. And of course now we need the author. So here I'll say example. So example will be our author. And now here, if I click in this featured checkbox, this post will be also featured just like these 5 posts here at the start of our hero. So let me do this also. Now I'll say here it will be featured, and then I'll just choose a category which we are fetching from our database. Now I'll say here recent book reviews. So I'll just use this category. So now if I go ahead here and click on the create button, so as you see, we got our post available for us. And also it will appear in its category. So if I go down here and find the review of books, so recent book reviews, and here you'll see that this post is also appearing here. Now also I am fetching just 3 posts of this category, so I'll show you how to filter those categories also. And this section is also just one component which we are reusing every time with our map. So I'll show you this trick also, how to make a map in which you show different sections by using just one component. So of course, if you make a mistake now here, so for example, if I say I don't want this example here or just the blog, I'll just go ahead here and click there, and I'll say remove this one and update this for me. So I'll just update it. Now as you see, our spanner is running. So I'll show you also how to create this beautiful spanner inside our project, in which if we click to anything which is loading, so it will show the spinner for us also. So now as you see, it's updated and everything is looking great. So now if I click to this post, as you see, our spinner is running, and the Next.js will create this page first for us, and after that page is ready and all the data is fetched, we will be returned to that detailed page. So now as you see, our image is here, the details is here, and everything is available for us. And now if I click here and go back to the home page, the same way it will just create the page for us, or it will fetch the data for us, and then we will be returned to that page. So the next functionality which we have is the search. So if I click on the search icon, as you see, we get all the posts which we have created and we can search on them. Now here I got 2 samples, and the reason is as I was testing the app, so I have created this already, but we can update this. So let's update this image of one of them, and then we will come back here. So here I'll go to update and I'll just update the image here. So the image is here and I'll say update. And as you see, the new image is here. Now if I go to search, as you see, we got the new image and we got different posts everywhere. Now let me search something so you can see if the search is working. Now it is created from example. So if we search by author, as you see, the example author will appear here. Now if I say coding straight, now as you see, we got all the posts created by coding straight, and of course we can search them by their title. So here for example, I'll search for power, so I'll say power. As you see, the power is here, so that's why we don't get any other posts here. But if I type also just lorem, and inside that power post we don't get any lorem, so that's why it's not appearing here also. So this way we can search according to the title, description, excerpt, or the author. For example, if I say post of admin, so our admin has created just this one post, that's why it's appearing here. Now let me go back, and as you see, we got everything a blog needs. And of course, as we created this post, we can delete this also. So I click on edit and then click on this delete button, and as you see, it is gone. So you may also notice that if we delete or update or create something, we see some snack bar here. For example, I'll go here and just say for test purposes, I'm just updating that. So if I update this, you can see that snack bar is also here. So it has updated the text for us, and the snack bar is also gone. So we'll learn also how to make those beautiful snack bars. And also, of course, as always, our website will be completely mobile responsive. So if I open this inside an iPad, so as you see, everything is designed perfectly for an iPad. So I'll show you how to make this also completely mobile responsive. And also, if the blog users open this website inside their mobile phones, as you see, it's also responsive for the mobile phones also. So I'm really excited to show you everything. Let's get started. So now to start this project, please go ahead and create a folder and name it anything you want, and open this inside your Visual Studio Code or any code editor you are using. So after that, you'll be able to install our Next.js app here. So now to install the Next.js app, I'll go back to browser, and from browser here, I'll type just Next.js and open the nextjs.org website. Here you will find the full documentation and anything new for Next.js. So as we got this Next.js 13, so the banner is also here. Now let's open this and see what's going on here. Now in this course we will be using Next.js 13 and also this app directory at the end of this course, because it says Next.js 13 and the pages directory are stable and ready for production. So which means that we can still use the pages directory, and this is the stable version for Next.js 13 also. But if you want to use the app directory, which is in beta version, so the Next.js recommends you not to do that for production. So it says the app directory is currently in beta and we do not recommend using it in production yet. But as this course is for learning purposes, so we will do the both things. We will be using the stable version, we will make all the blog in the pages, and also we will be using that inside the app directory. and you will see how easy it is at the end of the course when we update from pages to app directory, because they are almost the same thing, just it will give you a more flexibility and also some good features which some people like but some people doesn't. I like it a lot, so I'll teach you also that. So if in future the next adapt this and say it is ready for the production, then we can just switch to that also without any problem. With that being said, now let's go ahead and start creating our Next.js app. For this, I'll click on documentation, and here's the getting started. One important thing here is the system requirements. You have to get the Node.js 14.6 or newer version of Node.js. If you're using Node.js 13, 12 or 11, it won't work or it will create some problems. So please go ahead and check the Node.js version of your computer. And after that, we'll go here and you see we got all the commands. You can use the npx to create the latest app, or you can use yarn, pnpm, whatever you like. I'm using the npm, so that's why I will be using the npx. So I'll just copy this one and go back to VS Code, and from here I'll just paste it. And after that, of course, you should name it. Now I'll say here Gates Notes clone, so it will be the app name. You can call it blog or whatever you want. And after this, I'll just press enter. And as you see, it starts asking you if you want to use this with TypeScript or without TypeScript. So for this series, I'm not using the TypeScript because a lot of you are not familiar with TypeScript. So that's why I'll use the normal JavaScript. So I'll say here no. And then it says if you are using ESLint. Now for this project I don't need this also, so I'll just put you can move here with your arrow keys. So I'll say here no, and then it will start installing that for us. And it's a success and everything is green. So let's cd to that folder. So I'll say here cd to Gates Notes like this, and then press enter. Now we are inside this directory here, and now we say npm run dev. So for React you would be usually using npm start, but here you have to say npm run dev, so it will run the Next.js in development mode. So for this I'll just press enter, and as you see it's using the local host 3001 because the 3000s I'm using for our app. So now I'll just press the Control or Command in Mac and then click on it. It will open that inside the browser. Now as you see, it says welcome to Next.js. Now we got the Next.js, so let's check the version of that Next.js. So here I'll say Control C, so I'll cancel the command. So to check the version here, I'll type npx next and you say -- or -- version, and then press enter. It will show you the actual version of your Next.js. So for us it is Next.js version 30.0.5. So it means we are getting everything ready to run. So first of all, let's go ahead inside our folder and see what we got here. So for this project you don't need to know Next.js because I'll cover everything, and as we are using I'll just explain everything in details. So don't worry if even you have never used Next.js before. So with that being said, now let's go ahead and see what we got. So inside this pages folder, as the name says, we define all our pages. Now the good in Next.js is that if you create a page here, you don't need to create any kind of route for that page. So for example, I'll say here, I want an about page. So I'll say about.js, and I'll just say here the shortcut of RAFCE and then press enter. It will create the React command for me. If you don't know about this, go to your extensions and here you'll be searching for React. So like that, and from here use this ES7 plus React Redux snippet. So you will get access to those shortcuts which I'm using in this course also. Now I'll close it, and here I'll just save it like that. So it is just about. Now if I go back to browser, and here we didn't create any route, so I'll just type about. So it's not running. Now let's see what's going on. Now it's because we are not running our app. So I'll say here npm run dev. So it will start our app. Now let's go back and refresh this. And now as you see, we got that about. So let's check if it is coming from our about page or not. So for this, I'll come back here and I'll say about us and save it. And if you go back, you see it's about us. So we have already created one route, which normally needs a more configurations. You need to install the React Router DOM and also define all those routes and import those components. But with Next.js, everything happens just like magic. With that being said, now let's go ahead and delete this. I don't need this anymore. But if I delete this, and if you go back to browser, now as you see, it says 404, this page could not be found. So we haven't created any kind of not found page or 404 page, but the Next.js has done the job already for us. So here, if you search for anything, it will just return this here because it doesn't find this, which is something I really like in Next.js. So in this project, we will start by its header or its navbar here, and also this top navbar. So today we will be designing this. So let's go ahead and create that components folder. I'll close these two also from here. We don't need them. And I'll go back to VS Code. And from here, I'll just go ahead in my folder or root folder. And here I'll create a new folder. And I'll call this folder components. Like that. And inside this, I'll create another React component, which will be navbar. Now I'll be using the JSX because JSX helps us to use the HTML elements very faster, and it got some more shortcuts which help us. If you're using just JS, it doesn't really matter. So I'll just say navbar.jsx, and then we create our component like that, and I'll save it. Now to get access to this component, we have to bring this inside our app. So we got this app.js and we have to import this here. For example, now I come here and here I'll say I need that, so I'll use the React fragment so we can cover two components here. So here before this, I'll just say the navbar. So let's import the navbar. Now it's not importing automatically, so let's import this by ourselves. So I'll say import navbar. Now it's importing this, so the navbar is coming for us. So let's copy this and use it here like that, and we have to just self-close this and save it. And as I saved, you can see everything is indented for me. It's because I'm using the extension of Prettier. So if you want this, you can just go ahead in your extensions and here search for Prettier. And Prettier will help you to manage your code and indent your code very fast without doing anything for that. So now I'll go ahead to my app. So as you see here, we got the navbar. Now the navbar is available everywhere. If you use another page, now as you see, we get the navbar available everywhere for us. So now as we got our navbar, so we can just go ahead and start designing that. Now I'm not removing all this data because for now it will look better if we have our navbar and some text here. And if you want to know from where these texts are coming, you can go in VS Code. And here inside index.js, you can find all those texts which is coming from there. So for example, it says welcome to Next.js. So I'll say here Next.js 13 and I'll just save it. And if we go back, you can see the 13 is also here. Now for now, I'll just leave it like that. So let's go ahead inside our navbar. So now for this project, I'm using the Material UI 5. So let's go ahead and install Material UI 5 also. So for this, I'll cancel the terminal and then I'll go to browser, and here I type MUI and it should bring me the materialui.com, and from here you can just install this from here, or you can just go in getting started and installation. So now from here you can install this with npm or yarn, whatever you want, but as we are using the npm, so I'll just go ahead and copy this command from here. I'll go ahead here and just paste it out like that, and then you have to just press the enter and it will start installing. Now let's use the time and go ahead and search for Material UI 5 icons also, because we'll be using the icons also. So for this I just come here and I'll say npm install MUI icons material. So I'll just copy this one also and go back here and just paste it. Now the other one is already installed, so let's press this enter and it will start installing that also. Now it's also done, so let's clear the terminal. So now we got everything installed, so let's go ahead and say npm run dev to run our application and start the development. So now to design our navbar, as always for Material UI we'll be using the app bar. But if you are not familiar yet with Material UI 5, please go ahead and watch my course in Material UI, and after that you will be able to follow this course also very faster. But I'll also clear everything here, so don't worry if you are a beginner. So now first of all I'll just import the container from Material UI. And I'll say here container, and also for closing we should use the container like that, and it's not importing automatically, so let's import this. So I'll say here import container, and this should come from Material UI, which is MUI material, or we can just type material, it will do the job for us. So it's MUI material, and we can save this. And now I'm using the container because if we come back here, now as you see everything is centered here. So all the sections and everything is centered, and to center everything like this in Material UI we use the container. So the container will give us some margin and padding from right and from left. So that's why I'm using that also here. Now as you see it's already centered. Now let's use the navbar also. So to use the navbar for Material UI we call this app bar in Material UI. So I'll just import the app bar from Material UI, and here I'll just type navbar and save it. And if we go back, you can see it's covering everything but our navbar is here. Now the reason why it is covering everything here is that we are using the container directly inside our return. So to solve this problem we need to use the reactive fragment or an HTML div. So for now I use the React fragment, so I'll paste it here and cover everything inside the React fragment and save it. And also for the app bar we have to give some position, so I'll say here the position of the app bar should be static, so it's static. And also for the color I'll say transparent, because we don't need any kind of color for this, so like that. And also to remove that, so if we go back, now as you see we got this shadow here which is not looking good, and also we are not using it here. Bill Gates is also not using that in his blog, so let's remove this also. Now to remove this, here I'll say elevation, and the elevation of this should be just 0, which means shadow 0. And if you go back you can see there is no shadow anymore. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and design our menu also. So for this I'll create another component. So here I'll say const, so it will be a const table, and I'll call this one menu. You can call it anything you want, and it will be styled. Of course we have to import the styled also, but remember here you have to import the styled from MUI material, not MUI system, because otherwise you will see a white page or you may see some other problems. So for now I'll say styled. Now it's imported from Material UI. So now we can define what we are styling. So here I'll say I want to style the box. So then we need a parenthesis and then the curly braces. Now inside these curly braces we can just type our CSS. Now here to give this a line in the bottom, so for that I'll be using the border bottom. So I'll say border bottom, and this should be just something like 1 pixel, and this should be solid, not slide, solid, and the color of that will be black. And after that, to center everything, I'll be using the display of flicks. If you are not familiar with flicks, also you can watch my Material UI course. In that I have explained everything about the flex box. Now here I'll say justify content, and the position of every content will be center, so it will center everything for us. And also I'll say align items center, not contents, so align items, and this should be also center like that, and just save it. And then for our menu we need also some menu items, so that's why we'll be using another constable. And here I'll say const menu item, so menu item, and this is the same way just like above, styled, and I'll be using here just the button, because we will be using some buttons in which we can click, so that's why I'll just directly use the Material UI buttons here. So now, and here I'll say the font weight of that buttons, or the text of that buttons, so font weight of that should be something like 900, and for the font size I'll say it should be 12 pixel, and also I'll say margin right, so they take margin right from each other, so margin right, and this should be also something like 2 pixel. Now let's save it, and also we can go here. Now inside our app bar here we'll be using that menu, so I'll just import or use that menu, so it's menu just from the above, and inside that menu we'll have menu items, so I'll say menu item, so this will be our first menu item. But before menu items we need our logo also. For now let me just save this and see the result. So here I'll say it's box and save it, and if we go back we are getting some error because we haven't imported the box. So any component of Material UI which you want to use, you have to import that also here. So I'll just import it here. So box, as we are using the button also, so let's import the button also, so we don't get any kind of error anymore. Now if you go back, as you see, the box is here and everything is looking as we want. Now let's go back and design further. So first of all we need our logo, which is here, logo, and also some description of the blog. So I'll be using that, and then we'll be using our menu items. Then we need these 3 buttons, and also search, and there's a hamburger menu also. So let's see how to use them. Now for that I'll be just using some logo here. So for logo I'll create also another component. You can use everything also here. For example, you can say just box, and inside this you can type SX and define all your CSS as you want. But for now I want to make everything clear, so that's why I'll be using some component. So I'll say here it will be a logo, and inside that logo we will type the logo name, so it will be codings notes like that. And also we will be using some description, so I'll say it will be logo desk, and here we will say the blog, so the blog, and I'll be using that description again. Now I'm not writing all the text in same component because it will cover just one line. Now let me show you like that. So I'll say here of coding straight, so you can see the example also now like that. But of course we need to create those constables. Now to create this component I'll say const and logo, and it will be of course styled just like above. So let's copy everything from here not all, but just this time here. And then we need the ending also. So this will save a little bit of time here. But this button here will be div, or you can use box. And then for the CSS here, I'll say the font weight for our logo this time. So the font weight of this will be also 900. And also I'll say the color of this should be black, like that. And then we need the font size. So the font size I'll be using 34 pixels. And also the cursor of this should be pointer, because if someone tried to click that, it should show that pointer for us. So I say cursor and it should be pointer, like that. Now it's good for logo. Now let's use this for description also. So I'll just copy everything and paste it here. And I'll say here the name of this will be logo desk or logo description. You can call it whatever you want. Now to show you the example that there's no difference between div and box, so that's why I'm using the box here. So here the text font weight will be just 600, and also the color will be black, but the font size will be a little bit smaller, and this should be 12 pixel, like that. And I don't need any cursor here. So let's save this and see the result. Now if we go back here, now as you see, we get the coding straight or the coding notes here, but below this we get the description. But in our real website, now as you see, we get that description as a row, and also they are on top of each other. Now to solve this problem, we need to use the flexbox again. So here, first of all, we have to divide this. So I'll just copy this one. This should be two different components so that we get that effect. So like that, and I'll just remove this text from here also. So it will be the block of coding straight like this. Now if we save this and if we go back, you can see they are on top of each other. Now how to make this row? Now there are many possibilities to show them or to position them as a row, but as we are using Material UI, so I'm not using the stack from Material UI. So for this, I'll just go ahead and cover these inside a stack. So I'll just say stack, and I'll import this from MUI Material. And of course, we need to close this also. Now let's cut this from here and paste it just here. So now let's save this. And if we go back, you can see we see no difference here. Now the reason is we need to give some props to the stack. So here I'll say the direction. So first of all, we need the direction of row. So it's just row. Now remember, stack is also using the flexbox. So anything you are using for flexbox, you can use for the stack also. So that's why I'm using here the direction of row. And if save this, and if we go back, you can see we got everything as we want, but these two are on top of each other. Now the reason is the stack is layouting them also just like this logo here. Now to solve this problem, we need to cover that logo description also inside another stack to get the position of column. So for this, I'll just cover everything in stack, and also here I'll say it should be column. Now the position is column. If we go back, now you can see they are on top of each other. Now we don't have any margin or padding from the top. So to solve this problem, I'll go back to VS Code. In here we'll cover everything inside our menu. So I'll just cover everything like this logo and logo description inside the menu, and for the menu I'll give some padding top. So I'll say here the padding top of this should be something like 2, like that. And if we go back, as you see, we got everything together, but there's also nice padding. Now to get that effect, we need to make some more CSS changes here. So now I'll go ahead inside my logo description. Now as these are too close with our logo, so let's define some SX here. So it's inline CSS. Now for this I'll say margin left to get some margin from logo. So here I'll say margin left, and the margin left will be just like 1 pixel, and also I'll give it some margin top. So, and this should be also something like 1, and save it. And also let's add some more buttons here, or some menu items. So I'll be using some more categories, so 2 of them, and here the second one will be videos, like that. Oh, not video, I need videos here. And also for the third one it will be error in review, just like that, and save it. So let's go ahead and see the result. Now as you see, we got 3 categories and they are looking nice, but the text is too small here because we are using some bigger text here. So let's go and change it also. So now I'll say for menu item, the font size won't be just 12 pixel but something like 15 pixel, like that. And if we go back, and as you see, they are looking now better, but the color is also blue. We don't want to use this primary color, but we want to look everything in black. So that's why I'll go ahead here, and inside every menu item here we have to define some props because the color is coming from the button props. So to solve this problem, we need to say the color of this should be inherit. Inherit means it should take the color from the CSS or any color we define, and not the standard colors of Material UI 5. So I'll just copy this one for the others also, like that. And if we save it and if you go back, you'll see that everything is in black. So now we need also 3 more buttons here. So it will be login, sign up, and create, and these 2 icons here. So let's go ahead and design them also. For this, first of all, here I'll be using a normal button for our login. So here I'll say button, like that, and it's coming from Material UI. So, and I'll say here this should be login or something like that. So log in, like this. And here we need to define some CSS. Now of course, if you want, you can make this also a component and use them again and again, but for now I'll be just using everything inline. So here I'll say the color of this should be inherit, again to get that black color. So inherit, and also we need some CSS here, so that's why I'll say sx is equal to, and of course we need to close this, so I'll just close it like that. And here we can define our colors. Now here I'll say the color of this should be it should be a blue button, so that's why I'll be using some color. So let me just paste this. So like that, you can use any color you want. And then what we need is the border. So I'll say border. So it will give it a border from everywhere. So here I'll say border 1 pixel solid. And this should be also the same blue color, like that here. So let's just copy this one and paste it there. And I'll say here the font weight of this will be bold. So let's save this. Now as you see, we got this blue button, but it's for sign up and not for login. So let's change this. So here we have designed that. So it's just our sign up button. So let's go ahead and use menu item instead of this button here. So here I'll say it should be sign up and not log in. So I'll say sign and up, like that, and everything is looking nice, but we need our button here. So I'll be using the button and close this, and here we'll say it is log in. So here we just say the color of this should be inherit, and that's it, inherit. And as you see, we got the button just like here, and also the sign up button. And then we need a button for create. So this will be almost the same as the sign up button. So let's just copy everything and just change the color here. So now I'll use the color here as green, like that, and the border also. So I'll say here the green color of border, and then we need to call here it is create, like that, and save it. And if we go back, as you see, we got create, sign up, and login. And then we need some icon button. So if we go here, now we can import the icon button from Material UI, like that. And we need to close this, of course. And inside this, we can define our icon as we want. Now I want to use the search icon here first. So let's import the search icon, and if we type search here, as you see, we have no option to import this. Now to import these, we need to go to Material UI, and I'll show you how to do this. So if I go to UI.com, and here I'll say getting started. So let's go to search, and here I'll say like icons. So Material UI icons, and you will see a list of icons here. So for this, for example, we need the search, and here you can choose any kind of search you want, but I'm using this one, so I'll click on it. Now as you see, this is the import of that. So I'll just copy this one and go ahead and paste it here. Now below this, I'll say search icon, and this will be there, and you'll be using this name also here. So it will be search icon, and we don't need any kind of CSS for now, so I'll just close this one. So if we go back, and as you see, we got that search icon, but as you see, it's very small, and here it's bigger. So let's go ahead and change the size of that. So for this, I'll come back here, inside search icon we'll define some inner CSS, so it will be SX, and here we will say the font size of this. So font size of this should be something like 35 pixel or whatever you want. So for now I'll be using 35 pixel, but inside this icon button we need also some CSS. So here I'll say size of this small, like that, and also I'll be using the edge, so edge, and this should be start, like that. And of course we need the color, so I'll say color of this also inherit, like this. Save it, and if we go back, as you see, we got a better icon here. But now you may say, why am I using that icon button as a small? I could use that large, so the icon would be looking also large, but it's not like that, because the icon button is just responsible for this shadow here. So if you say it's large, it will just cover everything here, but I wanted to use just a small shadow here, like that. And then after this, we need that hamburger menu, so let's just copy everything from here. I'll copy it and paste it again, and here we will be using the menu. So let's import the menu. Now we want to import the menu item or the hamburger, so let's go ahead inside Material UI and search for that. So here we can say menu, and as you see, we got this menu here. We can just import it like that, but as you see, it's importing from MUI icons material. We can import them together. So instead of taking lots of place here, now I'll say here just use this curly braces, and I'll say search, import search as search icon, and import the menu, so it's a menu icon, as menu icon, like that, from Material UI. So it will be imported from MUI icons. So let's use this menu icon. So we'll go down here just like that. And instead of this menu, I'll be using the menu icon. And let's save this. And if we go back, now it's there. So as you see, everything is looking just like that here. Now there's some difference between the margin top of bottoms, so let's take care of them also. So for this, it's just easy. We'll come here and inside the stack here, we can say flex of 1. So flex, and this should be just 1, and save it. And if we go back, you can see everything is aligned, so they are not anymore together. But as you have noticed, there's slightly difference between these margin paddings and also the text here. So as you see, they are smaller and they are a little bit bigger. So let's see the difference and why it's happening. So let's go back to VS Code, and here inside the VS Code we got some problem. Now the problem is here we are using one stack or the menu as flex, but for these, for the logo and logo description, we are using a separate stack which is taking a flex of 1. But for the menu items we have no wrapper. So that's why I'll be using the stack here to give them some margin from top and bottom. So for this, I'll just copy everything from here and I'll paste the closing just at the end of our menu items. So just here like that. And also here we don't need this flex of 1 because it should take all the width for us. But here we'll say the margin. So in Material UI you can define the margin just directly without the SX. So that's why I'll say margin is equal to, and here from everywhere I will give it a margin of 2. So if I save it like that, and now if we go to browser, as you see we got almost everything the same. But still the text of these two buttons are larger than here, so let's take care of that also. So for this I'll come back here, and for menu items here I'll say the font size of them will be just 12 pixel. So I'll save it, and if we go back you can see that we got everything small, but these buttons should be a little larger. So for this I'll go ahead inside their components, because if I apply the larger font size for the menu item, these buttons will take effect also, but I want to just apply those font size inside these categories. So here I'll say SX, so here I'll say font size, and the font size of this will be just something like 15 pixels, so it will be a little bit bigger than the normal. So I'll just copy this one and use this for the other components also here like that, and save it. And now as you see we got almost the same thing just like the coding nodes here. But there's also some difference between these, so let's take care of this also because I made some mistake here. So as you see I got this log description and I'm giving that margin from top and left, and that's not right because I want to give the wrapper of them, so this stack that margin top and left. So I'll just paste this here and save it, and now if we go, so as you see we got a good margin from left and also margin from top. Now everything is looking as just here. So there are slightly difference between these button font sizes, so let's take care of them also. Now for this I'll go back to VS Code, and here for the font sizes of them, so there's one icon button that's 35, and here it will be just 39, so it will be a little bit bigger like that. And if we save this, now as you see everything is looking just like this here. The only difference now here is that we are using different fonts here. So we'll be installing that font also in another tutorial because this will be too long if I install that also. So let's go ahead and now take care of this top navbar, which is this here. This will be just easy to apply. So for this, I go back to VS Code and I'll just copy everything from here because that's all what we need for that also. And here inside the components, I'll create a navbar and I'll say it is navbar top. So .jsx again. And inside this, I'll paste everything from there, but the component name will be navbar top. So here I'll press Ctrl D, so it will name both together, so it will be navbar top. And here we need to remove some of the components. So for this, let's see which components are there. So here we don't get any categories and also not the logo, so it will be the blog of Coding Straight. So let's do this also. Now for this, I'll go here and let's remove all those things which we don't need, which is the logo and logo description. So let's leave the logo just like that and remove the logo description from here, and we'll be writing everything in one line. So I'll just remove that from here. Actually, we can remove all the stack from here. So let's remove this, and for this logo here we will say Coding's Node, the blog of Coding Straight, like that. And let's make this C also as capital, like that. And we will remove all the stack of our menus, or not the stack, let's just remove these categories from here because the buttons will be still there, like that. And it is looking good now. Let's save this. And also here for this app bar we need some more CSS, so let's just remove everything from here, and here we will be using our SX. So I'll say SX is equal to, now here the position first of all will be not static anymore, so it will be position, like that, and this should be fixed so we can see that all the time. And also from top I'll give it 0 pixels, so there will be no margin from the top, so like that. And also I'll say the width of this will be 100%, so we don't need any container anymore, so 100%. And also the background color of this, so background color, like that. And the background color of this will be black, and don't forget here to put important because otherwise it won't take effect. So background color black important, and I think that's it for now. So let's go ahead and take care of that functionality because otherwise we won't be able to do anything. So for that I'll go ahead and import the scroll trigger from the Material UI. Now you may not be familiar with this because I haven't covered this in my course, this kind of navbar, but it's also in Material UI something you would not normally need. So let's take care of this. So here I'll say import, and it is use scroll trigger from Material UI. You can use here also just use scroll trigger so we don't get any problem. And also to get that animation effect we need to import the fade also. So let's import the fade from Material UI fade. So from Material UI, so Material UI, and as we are importing the component directly, so we have to give it its name or its location, which is this fade, like that, and save it. And now to scroll everything we have to create one function. So before this top navbar I'll be creating that function, and the function will be, so you can call it anything you want, so I'll say scroll top, something like that, and here it will take some props, so we can apply the props and then we start that function. First of all we need the const, and here I'll put every children inside this const table, so const children, like that. and this should be equal to our props. So any children we got here, it will be applied inside our props, which we can later access. So, and then we will be using the trigger. So const, I call this trigger, so let's say trigger like that, and this will be equal to, now what we have imported, we have imported the use scroll trigger from material UI. We'll be using that here like that, and here you can define all the functionalities of use scroll trigger. Now to do this or to follow this, you may have some problems, so that's why let's go to MUI.com, and from here you will find use scroll trigger. So like that, and you get all that functions which I'm using here inside that navbar. So as you see, it is already done for us. So if you want to learn that, as you see, there are good examples of them, how you can use it. So that is the scroll, and as you see, it removes it as it comes down, and there are many other examples which you could use for your projects. But for now, I'll show you everything. So if you had any problem, you can just come up here and you may find a solution for your problem. So let's go ahead back to our code, and here we'll be using that properties. So now here I can say disable height stresses. So, and this should be false, and we put the comma, and after this we need the threshold like that, and this will be 150. So as we run the course, I'll show you what it does and what does it means. For now, you can just ignore this. So, because if I try to explain like that, you will not understand it. Now here I'll say return, and then we should return something. So not return, but return, and here we'll be using the fade which we have imported from material UI. So I'll say fade, and here you will say in like that, and in should be equal to our trigger, that function we have created here. So this constable will be there, so trigger like that, and we just close this, and inside this I'll be using a box, so like that, and here I'll put all the children's, so all the props which will come. So it will be just written here, and I'll show you why in a minute. So I say children like that, and for the box we also need some prop, and here I'll say the role of this, so it will get a role, and the role of this we will apply presentation like this. Now we got some error here, and that's because we are not closing that like that, and we will save this. So now to use this function, we have to cover our app bar inside this scroll top function. You can call this anything you want, so I'll say here scroll top instead of this container. So we are using the scroll top, and as I said before, we are using the props as children, and now inside this scroll top we can use the spreader. So here I'll say spreader props, so it will just go ahead inside this props. Now as I said before, we are using the children as props because now all the components will appear just here. So if we trigger, it will just fade and show us all the presentation or all the components of that navbar. So now let's save this, and after this, to see the result, we have to go to our app.js, and here we need to import the navbar top also, otherwise we can't see that. So let's import this, and I'll say just paste it here, and this will be not navbar, but this time it is navbar top. So now it's importing there, so like that, and save it. We got some mistake here, so let's save this again, and if we go back, now it says props is not defined, and the reason is we have forgot to use that props. So if we go here, we need to pass this props also here inside our navbar, otherwise we got no props. So like this, and then we go back here, and now if I scroll down, now as you see, we got everything as we want. but we can't see our text here because the color of that is also black. Now let's change the color of our logo. So I'll go ahead here and find out the logo, and I'll say the color of this will be white, like this. And as you see, we got this big text here, but it's not looking good, so let's take care of this also. Now for this I'll be using the typography. Now let's go ahead and do this. I'm using the stack, inside this logo, so I don't need this stack also anymore, so let's remove this just like that. And here for the logo I'll be using typography instead, so it will be typography. It's imported and I'll just use it here, and we can apply some props here. So I'll say here variant of this will be h6, so it will be a little smaller. And also for the component I'll say it's a div, and I think that's it for now. So let's save this, and if we go back, as you see, we got everything as we want, but we got no flex. So let's here define some flex also. So here we will define some flex for this typography. So I'll say flex is equal to 3 because it is one component of this menu, and this menu is a flex box, so we are allowed to use the flex here. So flex of 3 and save it, and as you see, we got everything just as we want. Now it's looking almost the same thing, but there's some difference between the icons, and also this text is here too much, so let's take care of this. So the blog of coding straight, so let's go ahead and say just the blog of coding straight, like that. So now to make everything flex, we'll be using some box here. So I'll say box like that, and here I'll say the flex of this will be 1, something like that, and we'll cover everything. So from stack and also the menu, so I'll be covering everything inside the menu, not the menu, so like this. And for the sign up and the login, we have to pass some more CSS because it's not enough here. So first of all, for the login, I'll be using also the menu and not button anymore, like that. And also here I'll say the color of this, as we are using the black background, so the color of this should be white. So color here I'll say white, and also I'll say the font weight of this should be bold. It will be bold, like that. And also for this sign up button, we need some more CSS, and here we are using the color like this, but instead of this we'll be using the background color for this blue color. So let's cut this from here, and here I'll say the color of this should be white, but the background color should be blue. So I'll say background, it will be background, so like that, background, and this should be this blue background. And also I'll define some text align, so I'll say text align of this should be center, so we get a good centered text here. And for the font weight, it's already bold, and here we don't need any kind of border, so let's remove that from here. So font weight will be bold, and here I'll say margin right, so we don't want to give it any kind of margin right. So here I'll say margin right of 0 pixel, like that. And then we need height, so height of this should be something like 50%. And also I'll say margin top, so we get a good margin from top, and this should be something like 2. And the font size will be here a little bit smaller, so I'll say font size, and this will be just like 11, like that, and save it. And also all these CSS we need for that green button, but just a different of the color. So let's paste this just here and say it's white, but the color of this will be green, the background color, like that. And what else we need here is, so let's see first of all the result. So now as you see, we got a beautiful background color for create and for sign up, and we can hover them. So this hover is coming from Material UI, so it's looking beautiful. But the problem is here they are not in a row, so there are the positions column and it's not looking good. So let's take care of that also. Now the reason is here we are putting everything inside the stack, but the problem is the icons which we are using here are not inside this stack. So I'll just cut this stack out and paste it here, like here, and save it. Now before the box, and if we go back, as you see, everything is just as normal as we want. And here you can just give it a margin from left. So let's go ahead and do this also. Now for this, we'll come back here and we'll go to our typography, and here I'll define some margin left. So I'll say SX and margin left. So margin left, and this should be something like 2 pixels, or maybe, yeah, that's enough, I think. So there's no difference because I'm just using 2 pixels. What I could use is just 2, which is like 20 pixels here. So as you see, we got some more margin from left, and now I think everything is just like here but slightly different because of these buttons here. So let's take care of that also. So now I'll come back here and search for my buttons, which is that create button, and here we define some more CSS. So this will make a little bit different than the others. So here we got the height and margin, but we can also here say that margin right from this should be 0. So we get no margin from right, and it's not 0, it's O. So let's make it 0, and I think for the other buttons the same thing, yeah. And also here we will give it some margin. So now the margin here will be a little bit different because we want to make margin from everywhere, but here I'll be using some specified margin. So I have tried it out everything. You can decide anything you want for yourself, but for now I'll say 2 pixel and then 0 pixel, and we got 4 pixel, something like that. So I'll save it, and if you go back, as you see, we got here the same thing. So there's the same margin here. And now if you go back, we got some margin from left here, and also we need, I think, just a margin, but the size of text is, I think, slightly different here also. So let's take care of that also. Now I'll go back here and go to our icons, and here first of all here I'll apply a font weight. So it will be 200, and also for the icon button I'll give it some margin left. So here I'll say SX, and this should be equal to, and it will be margin left of just 2, and save it. And if we go back, we should have a good margin here. As you see, we got the same thing as the other website. Now everything is looking beautiful and everything is working as desired. Now let me explain you the threshold of Material UI, which is here. So as I said, I'll explain that everything for you, but here also we don't need this logo, so let's remove this. Now as we got here this threshold, so let's see what it does. Now for this, if I go here, now as you see, as I scroll down at the specified time of the browser, it will just show up. You see, it's the end. So that's why we need this threshold. So we can define how much should the user scroll so that this top navbar appear. So for this, for example, if I go back here and I'll say that threshold is just 10, and I'll save it. And if we go back, as you see, if I scroll just a little bit, and you'll see that it is occurring. But if I make it, for example, just again 115 or more, and if we go back, it's gone now, and I'm scrolling down, nothing happens, and as it gets to 150, it will just show up here. And that's it. That is all what this threshold does. So that's it, guys. For this part, I think it's enough. I don't want to make this video too long. So if you want to follow this course, please don't forget to subscribe my channel and press the bell button so you get informed as I upload the new course. For now, thank you so much and have a nice time. Please do practice and everything will be easy. With that being said, see you in the next part.